Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hi, good morning, and welcome to the Thursday edition of Sidelines. Rob Browne here with you. Got a great couple of hours to go. A lot to talk about here. Excuse me. Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, bats in the leadoff position, as he always does on Thursdays. Followed up by Gary Harris, Tide 100.9 WVUA TV 23 down in Tuscaloosa. And always love to hear what is on Gary's mind as well. That quarterback situation is interesting. Tyler Buckner has been brought in from Notre Dame. Him and Tommy Rees have a relationship, obviously. So Nick Saban, I think that's the first time, but my God, after you've had the run of Jalen Hurts, Tua Tagovailoa, Mac Jones, Bryce Young, man, 4 straight to the NFL. Hurts scores second round, Tua, Mac Jones, and Bryce Young, the number 1 pick. An incredible run. Hour number 2, John Hartwell, AD at ULM, checks in with us. Matt Dean out this week for some meetings on some rules committees that he's on. So he will be out. But Yancy Porter will check in with us. Rebel Yell Hotline. We got a lot to talk about, a lot to cover. Hey, we're here 6 days a week, 25 shows a month at least. 50 hours of content or more. www.sidelines.live. We're also on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all over the place. Instagram, and follow us on Twitter at @sidelines_live. And tomorrow morning, we'll have Dave Tompkins and Greg Williams on with us as well, talking about the Kentucky Derby. It is the big horse race, the fastest. What was it? 2 minutes in sports. It's really a lot of fun. Hey, you are seeing a lot of things happen with the portal and with NIL, and who better to bring in here than the man from the Pebble Beach Golf Course baseball stadium? I love that fact. God, that is beautiful. I mean, I'm sitting there looking at it. Is that a green Celtics hat? I love that. That's a good looking hat. Watching the Celtics play last night, and I fell asleep. We've been in Memphis all day. I think we got home at 8:30 or 9. But man, this is an exciting time. Grizzlies are out. They've been sent home early. They're in timeout season. But, let's talk a little about your Celtics before we get into the Razorbacks.
Well, the Celtics fell asleep the first game, so if you fell asleep the second game, so I liked it better that way. So yeah, it was a must-win last night. Good to see it happen. There would have been much gnashing of teeth and cursing and all that around this house if they'd have lost last night.
Oh yeah, I mean it's tough. And I was watching the Braves play last night. They were up 13-4. Already had 5 home runs down in Miami. We got to get the Cardinals going. Give me your 30-second elevator speech on where they are. They are the second most tradition-rich baseball in history. 11 World Series titles. Is anyone even close to that besides, obviously, the Yankees at number 1?
Yeah, I think that the Nationals like 5 or 6. But the Cardinals, I am finally figuring out what it's like for my friends that have been Cubs fans all their lives. This sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not good right now. They've never fired a manager this early, but it might be coming. I mean, because nothing is going right. Adam Wainwright coming back Saturday, that's about the only thing I can say is going right now.
Yeah. Well, the Cardinals their fan base, I've always wondered why Missouri can't tap into the fan base of the St. Louis Cardinals and capture that enthusiasm. I wouldn't say some of it, just try to capture all of it. Get them like the Braves country. Their footprint is just right in the backyard of the most passionate college sports fans in America. So
you should ask a question about that next time you go to the SEC.
I did. I was the dumbass that asked that question to Eli Drinkowitz, who may have been the best dressed coach there. Blue and white seersucker suit. He is. He looks more like an analyst, like he works for E&Y, on big accounting projects. And he's a hell of a coach, though.
He's from just down the street here where I live. He's an interesting fellow. No, he was here at Springdale for a while. So
okay, yeah, I know he
coached with some dude named Gus Malzahn. So.
Yeah, he did, and then he came to Auburn. I like him. You cannot help but like that guy. I want to see him do well. Let's talk about the Razorbacks. Man, this SEC baseball race is so competitive. You're going to be going to Mississippi State. That's going to be huge.
Arkansas lost Tuesday night to Lipscomb. So again, obviously, the game has passed Dave Van Horn by. You hear that after these Tuesday night games. They dropped. I mean, it was a hard drop in RPI. They dropped from 5 to 6.
Yeah. Well,
I think they're going to be okay, but you're right. Mississippi State is a team that 2 years ago obviously won it all. Now they fired their pitching coach earlier this week. That's always a precursor to when you fire the head coach. Hope that doesn't happen to Chris Lamanis. Think he's a good dude. Think he's a very good coach. Sometimes you go all in and then things don't work right the next couple of years, but we'll see. This is Arkansas's pitching took another hit. Dylan Carter out for the year with the third UCL injury that this team has suffered this year in its pitching staff. So going to be a big one for them.
Ulnar collateral ligament.
Mm-hmm.
Yucks. That's
UCL on second reference in the story.
Yeah. Because I was thinking about that because that's what Butch Thompson always says. He goes, Dr. Andrews, he's always telling us, he said, the elbow is designed for about 90 miles an hour. And I'm watching a lot of these kids throwing in the upper 90s. You can't sustain that.
Yeah, and what was interesting, Dylan Carter, the young man who stepped up when the other two UCLs were torn earlier this year.
Yeah.
For he went from pitching around 90 in a game to about 82, something like that. They knew that something was wrong. They went and got him an MRI, and the first MRI proved to be I guess negative for him being injured, but they went ahead and did the second one where you put a dye inside there and they got in there and found that there was a tear, and they're not gonna push it. But that, we have people here, and I'm not a medical doctor. Obviously, I've watched a lot of TV medical dramas and stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, but I don't know, how this keeps happening. I think last week we discussed, I think it's better if you're a multi-sport athlete when you're in high school instead of, putting all your time into baseball and all your time into throwing consecutively, over and over and over. I think it's good if you stretch it out. But it's been one of his better jobs, really, and Dave Van Horn I'm talking about, in, putting a jigsaw puzzle together as he usually, finds a way to do it.
Yeah. Well, and I think the brilliance of Dave Van Horn is keeping that pitching staff going, because look around in the SEC, East Division, West Division, whoever can keep their pitching staff healthy is going to have the best success. And because LSU and South Carolina did not finish the third game in that series, I'm looking at the standing. It's 15-5 for LSU and 14-7 for Arkansas. And does it really matter? I mean, you about the divisions, this isn't for like the whole you still got to go to the tournament and play that.
Yeah, and the big thing for Arkansas right now, they're going to host a regional. I think that's here, unless they just fall off the map, and then they did that a little bit last year. But super regional is my wife, Patriot, is rooting real hard for them to get a super regional, because last year it was off to Oklahoma State and off to North Carolina. She'd rather me be around here. And I know the fans would certainly rather have the games here. This team has been phenomenal at home. I think they're 28-3 in home games. Not as good on the road. One of two or three SEC teams that do not have a winning record on the road. So I think it's important for them to play at home as it usually is, for any club.
Yeah. Well, and last year I remember having to go to Oklahoma State for that regional in North Carolina. The SEC is so strong. I think last year the league had 9 or 10 teams go to the tournament. But like Coach Thompson says, and you know this, you are rewarded for playing the toughest schedule in the toughest league in America. That pays off. When last year 4 teams from the SEC West went to the tournament, and Tennessee, the team that was the hottest team, maybe the most disliked team, with a lot of bad karma there at the end of the season. But Notre Dame came in there and kept them from going. But I don't know if we're going to have 4 teams from the West, but I certainly think Arkansas and LSU, and then Vanderbilt, South Carolina. But as hot as Tennessee is, you see them, they're an issue.
Yeah, that was what I was about to say. They may be more dangerous now than they were last year because to just be honest, they're full of themselves last year. And had not faced much adversity. They've done that this year. They've seemingly overcome it. And LSU, South Carolina, a couple of others, have had consistent pitching. Have been able to throw pretty much the same 3 guys or 3-4 guys all season on the weekend, and that's not been a case. As I think I said here last weekend, the most important person on the Arkansas baseball team has been this dude named TBA, because he pitches every Saturday, every Sunday, and he's filled in for all these injuries. But especially once you get to regional and super regional play, and you have to have that 4th starter. Well, there are a lot of teams that don't even have the 2nd starter for field, instead of the 4th one.
Yeah. Well, let's put on our analytical hats here. And do you remember going back 10 years ago, 20 years ago, this many teams having so many issues with pitching? I'm just going to guess it's these kids are starting so young, throwing so many games, that the number of 12-year-olds with Tommy John's shoulder surgery is spiked dramatically. That's where we are. And these kids are coming in with arms when they're 18 and 19 that are the arms of a 30-year-old.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit about that. I think it's the continuous wear and tear. Strangely, I tore my rotator cuff while pitching batting practice for my daughter's fast pitch softball team, because
rotated right or left.
I left, and that was right. Excuse me. That was just not an emotion that I had done growing up, and then did it continuously. Got to be pretty good about it, and but then they told me you can have this surgery and you can sit in the chair and can sleep for 6 weeks, or you can just deal with it. And I said, well, I've dealt with a lot of stuff, and I don't think the Cardinals are going to come calling now. They may now, but I didn't think they were back then. So,
You know what? Whenever I pull a right or left shoulder, deltoid, whatever like that, swimming, butterfly stroke, absolutely, I don't know what it is. It just pops things back in place. Swimming, medically they call it hydrotherapy. And obviously I'm not a doctor, you can tell, but it works. And there's a couple other things, but these pitchers, the midweek game, Tuesday or Wednesday, I was listening to ESPN 103.7 The Buzz in Little Rock yesterday, and they were talking about that loss. They said the crowd was 9,000 something Arkansas fans, maybe 27 Lipscomb fans. And yes, Dave Van Horn, the game has passed him by. It is unbelievable to hear some of that stuff. But seriously, he is an elite coach. But damn, the pitching, the numbers, the sports institutes, the medical institutes, they've got the numbers. I'm going to try to find those. But we're having kids arriving in college already, a lot of them with burned out arms.
Yeah, he very easily, Coach Van Horn very easily could have trotted out one of his weekend pitchers and won that game the other night, but he made the proper decision to have his designated hitter, who has now pitched in 3 games, throw, and he gave up 2 runs and they weren't able to win, but that was the right decision. Sometimes sometimes winning the game is not the most important thing during a midweek game. You always want to do that, but you have to think about the weekend, and you have to think. I mean, he was the eighth pitcher of 9 pitchers. They had one more pitcher left on the roster, I think Cooper Dawson, but they're trying to keep him redshirted. But you just got to make decisions during the year that sometimes the fans, the media, and yourself may not understand.
Yeah, well, it is. And when we come back after the break here in a minute, we're going to get into Razorback football because there's some activity in the portal. But I think this baseball, I'm looking at the guys there's so many players coming up here from Curacao, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, and whatever, Puerto Rico. It's just amazing. We're having to go out and find these guys because we're burning up our arms of the kids. This term competitive baseball. I mean, tell me when it wasn't competitive. That's what I don't get. And you've got these overzealous parents that are pushing these kids to be the Major League All-Star, but they're 9 and 10 years old throwing that many games. I'm not surprised. We see it. The you demand syndrome has just absolutely ruined a lot of careers at 13 and 14, and they're limping into college with broken down arms. It's like they're riding around on hog tires.
That had to be the thing with Steven Strasburg. We have been one of probably the game's best pitchers, but because he had so much stressful innings on that, By the way,
hold that thought. We'll take a break. We're going to be right back. I want to hear about Steven Strasburg after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hey, Dudley, let's go back and talk about Steven Strasburg because I did not mean to cut you off. The old timer came up for the commercial break. This is the Chad House, ECS House Industries Razorback Report with Dudley Dawson of hogville.net. So I want to hear that, and so does everybody else. I've had several people text me and go, what was he talking about? That was interesting.
A couple of things. Number one, absolutely love the Rod Serling picture from Auburn there with the Good Morning fellow sports fans. I love that show. Every one of them. I think Jordan Peele did a great job in reviving it. I hope that they do more episodes of that. I know that kind of got shut down a little bit during the pandemic. But Steven Strasburg.
Yeah, it was all last night. Yeah.
Steven Strasburg pitched so many stressful innings early on in his career. And I'm not talking about his career with the Washington Nationals. I'm talking about his career when he was a youth pitcher. They, didn't really stick to the number of innings that they should. That's a very important thing in Little League and all that is you institute. You cannot pitch more 6 innings a week, something like that. That's for health reasons. A lot of people get upset because they have one Jimmy or Joe that can make it happen and they have to pull them, but that's for the guy's future down the line. And that's I've read some stuff. That's really where Steven Strasburg's issue, became. Obviously Washington won a world championship and all that, but you feel sorry for that guy because he could have been just magical, but all the stress on his shoulder. And and it's not necessarily when you're just throwing an inning. It's when you're throwing an inning, you got one out and the base is loaded, and you're having to make pitches, different things. There's a lot of different things that go into sports, not just throwing a ball over a plate.
Yeah. Baseball is the most cerebral game. I mean, you watch, like my friends, they're Braves fans, Cardinals fans. I call them Bravesologists. Billy Roberts, Tyler Keelan, they watch every single game. And, if you're the wife, you better have another place to watch TV. That's what I saw over there with Mallory and Tyler. But it's really fun. I think about Mark the Bird Fidrich too. They pulled him away. It was up here. It was mental, but golly, you're right. We don't understand what's involved. But I saw 8 pitchers used in Game 3 last Sunday in Columbia with South Carolina and Auburn. 8 pitchers, and Auburn lost 8-7. They had to use 8 guys to be close. It's such a challenge. And you're right. Dave Van Horn could have pulled one of his big dogs out Tuesday night, but he's looking ahead at the big picture. He's smart. That's why he's Dave Van Horn, Hall of Fame coach, future.
Yeah, and all the fans were yelling, they never win when they play in North Little Rock at Dickey Stadium. They never win. Now, that's what it seems like, but they're 10-2 in 12 games there. So never win. I have to remind folks every once in a while, what seems like happens isn't really the case. I mean, 10-2, that's winning. That's not never winning down there. So, and they get to bring the team to the Central Arkansas fans. A lot of people who don't get a chance to see it. You said 9,000 plus were there, at least tickets sold. And, I think that's important. Of course, I grew up in Northeast Arkansas. And I think it's important to bring the team to the fans. Now, you have home stadiums for a reason. You should play most of your games here, but I don't think it's that big a deal to drop one game in basketball, football, and baseball and play down there. So,
how would Rod Serling approach the North Little Rock issue for Arkansas baseball? Could you imagine Rod Serling writing, describe it for us, Dudley?
Well, I think that he'd first point out that, Arkansas does really well at its home stadiums. But do you believe that there is a place that they cannot win, although they're 10-2, they cannot win, and that place is called the Twilight Zone?
That's right. Perry Mason comes on Me TV here in the park in Memphis market in the mornings as Audrey has slipped into the great den, the great hall to watch it, and then at night again.
She's watching Paul Drake.
It's Paul Drake. He's the ladies' man, and then at night again we get after the Carol Burnett show we get Perry Mason again, followed by the Twilight Zone. Some of those episodes. The one when the woman kept seeing the guy on the wing outside the plane. It's just, and that's a lot of the way fans are. You're right. They just can't win in North Little Rock. They shouldn't play there. They're 10-2. And you're right. Let's talk about Razorbacks football right now. Man, they're getting after it in the portal. And the biggest area last year where they struggled was secondary. And the guy that was talked about the most, that played the fewest games, hell of a player, Jalen Catlin, ends up transferring to Texas. But defensive line, front seven, looks like they're getting better, Dudley.
Yeah, and they've certainly added, I think, 4 guys to the defensive line. They've added 3 to the secondary, so they knew what the issues were. They went about trying to fix them. They're down to 7 scholarships, or I should say they have 7 scholarships to work with during this portal time. The portal closes 1 week from today, May 11th. You have to get in. You have to make a decision by May 11th. So this is going to be an interesting week. I expect we'll see a lot of activity. Now, I do think that, as we've talked about many times, the influx of new coaches at Arkansas has been a boom for them. It has really helped with recruiting. They have several scholarship offers out to defensive linemen and secondary guys still. Again, I think we're going to see a lot of Otis Kirk's going to be really busy this next week, with recruiting and stuff. But they've done a really good job at trying to, as we've often discussed, trying to improve the 1 to 85. You know, and I don't even think they've improved the 1 to 22, which you know, I think is obviously key. But depth wise, they're going to be better off both in the quarterback room, lots of other places on this football team where if a guy got injured last year, well, that spot's going to, fall to the wayside. Yeah. Coaches from other teams are going to are smart enough that they're going to run right at you. If you're losing defensive linemen, they're going to throw right at you. If you're losing secondary members, and by the way, Quincy McAdrew is such a great young man here up at Arkansas. Played at Clarendon. Yeah. He was in a car wreck the other day in which he rolled a couple of times. He's fortunate to be alive. That's the number one thing. We'll see how long it takes him to get back to where, he can actually get on the football field. But, wanted to point that out that, dudes, my wife sometimes criticizes me for going slow, but I ain't got to get anywhere that fast. And I'm not saying he was speeding. I'm just saying that it's tough. And just certainly glad for him and his family that he's okay. And I don't care whether he's ready to start the season or not. I'm just glad he's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We go through Clarendon a lot over there off 79. The Lion's Den, unbelievable. Burgers, shakes, and fries. And sad to report that as far as I can tell, the White River Dairy Bar over in Duval's Bluff has closed, home of the famous funnel cake French fries.
Yeah, it's unbelievably in the many miles that I've traveled over the course of this sports writing career, the great amount of food I've had at small little diners or small dairy cups, and had some people around me who don't understand that. They think that's thing food. I'm saying it's unbelievably good food, and I need to have that every once in a while. Just like the pitchers need to rest once in a while. You got to balance. You got to balance things out. That always eat salad and kale and whatever that other stuff is.
Oh yeah. Well, we try to, and we were. You go to Duval's Bluff, you've got to go to one of the holy grails of barbecue, Craig's Barbecue. And what's unique about it is it's sliced pork loin. They've got the mild, the medium, and the hot Craig's Barbecue sauce. It's unlike anything else that you get. But when we go through there, we'll call our friends and bring back 6 or a dozen Craig's Barbecue sandwiches wrapped up in the wax paper. But you better call probably 45 minutes before you get there so your food is ready. And during duck season, at least 45 minutes because they have the pie lady there too with a meringue about that tall on top of it. And Dondi's over there in Desark. There are so many, as you hit each of the 200 high school football programs in the state of Arkansas, would be kind of cool if you said the best restaurant in some of those. Little Rock, there's multiples, okay? You could go to one of Arkansas legend Joe Klein's Corky's Barbecues, perhaps, or you could go. Now, we found another one in Wynn that's off the charts during this tornado, feeding a lot of people and helping out Darlene and Walter Hill. Fannie Mae's Mobile Barbecue. Oh, my God. Their chicken leg and thigh quarters and their burgers and their barbecue and their mashed potatoes, even their corn tastes like caviar. I mean, but Dudley, that would be a kind of a cool story for you that if,
I'm going to take your word on caviar. I can honestly say that I have not had any caviar in my life. I had sushi once and then decided that I like my fish cooked.
Yeah.
Absolutely. My wife loves sushi, but that's just not me. I like my fish cooked.
Yeah. And the shimmy, whatever that. Yeah. I like it like tempura, whatever, probably better too. But we'll be going up in a few weeks to the Spring River up in Hardy and go up to Missouri and all and catch a lot of fish. We go 3 or 4 times a year. I'm down to 1 trout left. And I do some places I go, they're a lot bigger, but you cannot beat just a diet of good fish. You got to have that. All right. Got to ask you this now too on football. Want to ask you about the Arkansas running back position. And just give me offhand, who were some of the guys that were forgotten in the 90s? Like Oscar Malone out of Gadsden, Alabama, Madre Hill out of Malvern, Arkansas. Where do you rank them on the list of all-time Razorback great running backs?
Well, I mean, those two guys you just mentioned, they have to be mentioned, in the top 20 for sure. Michael Hill, I think, I'd have to go back and do some analytical things. I know that in terms of yards, he was big, but in terms of what he did when he was here, Danny Ford once sent him back out hurt. And, they ended up getting to the SEC championship game because of that. But I don't know that it did Madre's career, the best. But those two guys certainly, are guys that and that was back when running the ball was the thing.
Yes.
Now it's more balanced and all that. That's probably Arkansas's deepest position this upcoming year when you look at Rocket Sanders, A.J. Green. You also throw in Rashad Dominion, who got a lot of carries toward the end of the year, and then they have some freshman guys that are I think going to be pretty good. So that's not a position I worry about at all.
Yeah, it's fun. Look, hang on with us if you can. Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net. We're going to talk with Gary Harris, Tide 100.9 WVUA TV 23. The dynamic duo of Gary Harris and Rodney Orr of Tider Insider. And Rodney was on earlier this week, and I said, Gary, and you do a great TV show. And Dudley, I'm telling you, I love to watch what's going on in all the other schools. But I go, Rodney, what are you talking about tonight? He goes, I never know until I get there. Gary just takes me into the field and we go. But I know one thing, we talked about the Alabama quarterback situation, but Gary, has there ever been a run in Alabama history of quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts, Tua, and Mac Jones, Bryce Young, the number one pick, and now you've got two guys, Jalen Milroe and Ty Simpson, and you're bringing in Tyler Buckner. But these previous four guys, have you ever seen anything like it?
No, there's never been a run like it. Now, during the 70s, it was a different style of football, Rob, and there was a run of wishbone quarterbacks, one right after another, starting with Terry Davis and the Rutledges and Richard Todd and Stedman Shealy and in their own way, that was an incredible run at running the wishbone. But the only one of those that really, Richard Todd was the number 6 overall pick in the 1976 draft by the Jets. And of course, Jeff Rutledge had a long career in the NFL, mainly as a backup. But for this type of player at this level, no, there's never been anything like it. Starting with Jalen Hurts, and even though he did leave and play his final year at Oklahoma, he was built by Bama, as they like to say. And you look at what he's doing now with the Eagles, and obviously Tua, if he can stay healthy, and Mac Jones, a number 1 draft pick, and then Bryce Young, the number 1 overall pick, and probably a day 1 starter with the Carolina Panthers there in Charlotte. So no, there's never been a run of quarterbacks like this probably in Alabama football history.
And they always say spring practice, the spring game doesn't matter. Well, it apparently certainly mattered at Alabama because they had their two guys competing. It's like Coach Saban and his offensive coordinator said, this may not be what we need. Let's go shopping. And hey, we pick you. Yeah. And then suddenly Notre Dame was left without a quarterback controversy.
Yeah. It's interesting, certainly, Dudley. I had said right after spring ball that I thought they had the starting quarterback on the roster, and they may still have. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen, but I didn't anticipate this, to be honest with you. But when you look at the connection that, and obviously since he committed to Alabama, I've done a lot more studying on Tyler Buckner, and I got a guy out there at KUSI, Brandon Stone in San Diego, sportscaster, and I'd gotten to know him back when Alabama played San Diego State in basketball in the NCAA tournament. And he texted me and he said, listen, he does an hour high school show out there like I do here. And he's covering Julian Sand right now. That's an Alabama commit. He said, Tyler Buckner is the best high school quarterback I've ever seen. He said he was unbelievable here in San Diego and that area. And, obviously the connection to Reese, the class of 2021, that was Notre Dame's number 1 priority at quarterback was Tyler Buckner for Brian Kelly and for Tommy Reese. And, they recruited him, they signed him. He started out last year as the starter, as you know, and then got hurt against Marshall. And I thought showed a lot in terms of having missed 10 games and kept coming back and playing in that bowl game, that Tax Slayer Gator Bowl against South Carolina. And even though he threw 3 picks, I think 2 of them were pick sixes, he still threw, or he accounted for 5 touchdowns. And, they beat South Carolina in that bowl game. And he's a tough kid. He's quick. He's athletic. I think he's a pretty good passer from what I've seen. He probably needs to improve, which seems to be the case for every quarterback they've got here. But, I think when you look at the tie-ins to Tommy Rees and it makes more sense. Now, I'll say this. I'm again, my perspective seems to be different than most people. I think that when you're on the outside and Alabama has done what it's done, people are looking for chinks in the armor. And last year provided a little bit of ammunition for the Nick Saban, is slowing down and the Alabama run is at an end. I kind of laugh when, people say, well, how did Alabama find itself in this shape? Well, first of all, when you got a Bryce Young, it's going to be hard to recruit quarterbacks sometimes. Yeah. And when they say Alabama doesn't have a quarterback, and they mentioned Lonergan and Holstein, they're true freshmen. They're not going to factor in anyway. So please, let's give them an opportunity to grow. And Jalen Milroe only started 1 game, and, he did play a lot against Arkansas.
Gary, hold that thought. We're going to come right back here on the May Veterinary Clinic Crimson Tide Report right after this. All right, Rob Browne back here with you. And want to say hello to a couple of listeners out there. Francis and Miller Douglas, doing great. Glad to have him back home. Big Notre Dame Francis, Miller, Alabama fan from down in Camden, Alabama, Gary. And Francis, being a Notre Dame graduate, said, it's going to be tough for us to live together because y'all took my quarterback. But I'm like, hey, it's the free market. But you were on to something that was really an eye-opener. See, that's the advantage of having you, a local TV sports anchor reporter, like what Dudley does. You're getting the story. Nobody else is talking about that. You have a relationship with a sportscaster that you started out in San Diego who's actually seen Tyler Buchner play. Gary?
Yeah, he's high. He's very high on him. Like I said, he said he's the best high school quarterback that he's seen. And he's covering Julian Sand right now, who's one of the top-rated quarterbacks in this upcoming class that's committed to Alabama. But I was talking about Rob and Dudley, the Alabama quarterback situation. I don't think it's nearly as bad as people are portraying. I think that Jalen Milroe is a very talented athlete. I think Ty Simpson, we don't know really what he is yet. And when people say that Nick Saban's desperate to find a quarterback, I don't agree with that. I don't think they would have taken just any quarterback. I think, again, the connection to Tommy Rees and how high Tommy Rees is on Buchner led to this transfer. Now, if you're asking me, and a lot of people have, obviously, on my show and in the community here, who I think the starting quarterback would be at this point, I would say my money's on Tyler Buchner. I don't think you bring him in unless you believe he's got the ability to start for you. Having said that, I don't think, they're going to name him the starter going into fall camp. He's going to have to earn it. And clearly there were a lot of people that expected, I guess, Buchner announced and Milroe will be in the portal the next day. Well, I'm going to tell you something about Jalen Milroe. And you guys know this, again, as you cover. Fans just look at it differently. Milroe will leave now. But, Jalen Milroe is not saying to himself, I'm going to lose this job to Tyler Buchner. Jalen Milroe said, I'm better than, athletes think differently than we think. And Jalen Milroe was on the front row the other night during the NFL draft, cheering on Bryce Young. They were there in the football room watching and having a big time. He likes it here. Now, ultimately, what will happen with, will they have 5 quarterbacks when the season starts? I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out. But Jalen Milroe right now has no intentions of going anywhere. And he's willing to compete with Tyler Buchner or Ty Simpson or anybody else. And I think Alabama has some really talented quarterbacks. the two freshmen I leave out because I laugh when people say they missed on Eli Holstein and Dylan Lonergan. Seriously? Really? I mean, they're just out of high school. They still should be in high school. You know, they enrolled in January. I mean, they ought to be going to their prom. And I do think that a lot of that is just people that want to see Alabama do badly and criticize. I mean, I don't see anywhere else where they're saying, well, this true freshman quarterback who just got here is already washed out because he can't beat out somebody that's already here. So I just want to see it play out. I may be misevaluating. I went to the spring game and I thought the quarterback play was okay. Did I think it was great? No. Did I see some talent flashing? Yes. And I kind of got, again, I think a lot of revisionist history goes on in this day and age because Alabama took a transfer quarterback. Now the talking points are, well, Alabama's terrible at quarterback. They stink. They don't have a quarterback. And I don't necessarily agree with that. We'll see how it plays out, but my money would be on Tyler Buckner. But at the same time, would it shock me if somebody else takes the first snap September, 2nd against Middle Tennessee? It would not.
Yeah.
Two things. Number one, there are plenty of people here in Arkansas, both coaches, players, fans, that think Milroe is excellent because they saw him running up and down the field against Arkansas during that game.
Yeah.
The second thing, if you are not, even especially today with the portal, if you are not always trying to over-recruit what you have, you're committing coaching malpractice.
That's right.
You cannot sit still. We have a basketball coach up here in Arkansas named Eric Musselman. That dude is trying to over-recruit every minute.
Yep.
He's probably somebody that just jumped in the portal and just got a text from him or his staff. That's what you're supposed to do. Now, do fans like it when Darian Ford ends up leaving a kid here in the state? No, I don't know fully how that went. But you want these guys to win. You pay them a lot of money to win, and then if the portal comes along and they use it to their benefit, you gotta shut up.
Exactly right. And even before the portal, Dudley, Saban would tell these guys, I'm always trying to recruit your replacement. I mean, every year they're trying, if they've got, a 5-star from the previous year at this position, they're trying to find a 5-star that they think may be more talented than him the next year. It's about competition. And you're absolutely right. One thing I'll say about Nick Saban, he's not perfect. No coach is, but every decision he makes, he does make in regards to trying to make his football team the best football team that it can be. And you can't, there's no room for hurt feelings anymore. Not in probably wasn't anyway, but now with the portal and NIL, these young men are more sophisticated than they've ever been, and they understand how it works. And you can't get your feelings hurt. If you're going to get your feelings hurt, you're going to be going from school to school to school to school to school because you're never going to find a place that is going to embrace you completely in regards to, there's competition everywhere, and you got to be willing to compete, and you've got to understand that when you're being recruited, the pitch that you're getting from these coaches, certainly they're going to tell you to some degree what you want to hear and that you're going to have an opportunity. But when you get there, you're going to have an opportunity, but you're not guaranteed anything. And the portal is you're absolutely right. I mean, if you're not doing your due diligence in the portal, regardless of whether you're the number 1 ranked team in the country or you're a program that's just trying to get to 500, you've got to look at what's available to you. And you also got to understand, and I think the top coaches do, that it does work both ways. You bring guys in, and there are guys that are going to leave you, and they're going to leave you quicker than they ever have before. So it's you're still trying to build a program, but much like you talked about with Musselman, he also understands, as most of these coaches do, it's year to year to some degree too. It's happening with Nate Oates here. I mean, after that year they've had, it's somewhat of a revolving door, and you've got to look long-term, but you've also got to be prepared for short-term success. And that means every year you're having to tweak your roster, whether you were good or bad the previous season.
Yeah. And Rob, we were talking about it earlier. Chris Lamonis wins the national championship 2 years ago. Then that other school wins it last year. He's 6-15 in conference play this year. And you hear that they're about to let him go. And, obviously the pitching coach got, gone. He hadn't turned into a bad coach. He just doesn't have the team that's capable of competing in the SEC this year. And now they're supposedly about to send him out the door. Well, if they do, there'll be plenty of people wanting to bring him aboard. It's sad, but again, that's why you have to over recruit what you have.
Yeah, Dudley, I know you've got to get on, but let people know how they can keep up with you at hogville.net, and then stay as long as you can, but just make sure people know that.
Well, this is my sign out, I guess. The hogville.net is our message board and website. We continue to put up a lot of articles. I mean, there have been several times this week already. I've seen 1 a.m. and 1:30 a.m. And not in a fun way. But then also Fearless Friday is our high school site. I continue to do some stories there. Obviously, we're focusing mostly on baseball and softball, which is about to get on a Zoom press conference now, because that's the thing these coaches do now. They don't want to see us in person when they can do the Zoom, and that's fine.
Real quick, Dudley, I predicted this when COVID hit. And Alabama and Arkansas, these schools went Zoom. I told some media people, I said it'll never go back to being what it was. There'll be some in person, but now the door's open to do these Zooms. And of course, we don't get to go to practice at all for Alabama football. I said it'll never go back quite like it was. And listen, you go with it. Sometimes for me, quite frankly, as a TV sportscaster, it's easier. I don't have to get somebody over there. I don't have to load up a camera, a tripod, and all that over there. We just pull it up on Zoom. So, but yeah, it's never going back. Zoom is always going to be a major part of what we do now.
I don't think they would have let me wear these pants I have on right now to the press conference. Some pajamas down here.
Take your word for it.
All right, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Definitely take care. Go Hogs. I love it. That you're right. It's Gary. So much of press conferences, when you go there, you used to have that personal relationship. And that's what I love about what I do here and in my wealth management practices, building the relationships. People say, why do you want this? Why do you want me? I'm like, I want the relationship. And when you're at practice, you're also able to see things. And I'm not going to be surprised if it doesn't shift back eventually, because I think the wrath of college football fans is such that, hey, man, we can't get enough information. I mean, you're doing your show 9 a.m. to 11 on Tide 100.9 Monday through Friday. You're also doing what, 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock sports?
5, 6, and 10. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, so, and that. I will say this though. I love this. It never feels like work. It is so much fun, and it is such it's a privilege to have great guests on here, but to deliver the content to fans out there who say, man, I didn't know that. Gary, your take on that Alabama quarterback situation is interesting. Let's shift it over to the running back position. Jahmyr Gibbs comes in via the portal out of Dalton, Georgia, plays at Georgia Tech, comes to Alabama. He's the number 12 pick in the draft. Alabama's running back room is always deep. Throw some names out there that you think are going to be household names by November.
Well, I'll just say this, and I don't know as much about other running back rooms, but I'll say this, Rob, I can't imagine there's a better one in the country. I mean, when you start with Jace McClellan and Roydell Williams, Jamarian Miller, who now wants to go by Jam Miller, and the freshman, help me out here, from Buford, Georgia. For whatever reason, his name slips my mind every time, but he's a great young player. Somebody, maybe I'll text you. And then, of course, you got Richard Young coming in from Florida this summer. But I think it's as good a running back room as there is in the country. I mean, Jace McClellan is a dynamic running back. Roydell Williams has been around here. Jam Miller is going to be a really good football player. And the freshman from Buford that just is slipping my mind here, and he's already on campus and is going to be a tremendous player. And then Richard Young is too. That's 5 high-quality running backs. So I think Alabama's running back room is loaded. I think that the offense is going to look a little bit different this year than it's looked the last few years. It won't be as quarterback dependent. I think they'll have, quarterback that's going to throw the football, certainly. But I think they're going to get a heavy dose of running football from Alabama this year too. And they're going to use these backs, and not just 1 or 2 of them, but I think they'll play 3 or 4 of them, Rob. And I think it's going to be a really strong point of this football team is going to be this running back room. I think they're loaded, and that's, as you said, after you lose Jahmyr Gibbs, who was the number 12 overall pick in the draft and the second running back and the highest running back drafted by the Detroit Lions since Barry Sanders back in the day. So I think running back's going to be a strength for this Alabama football team. Gosh, are you look that up? Put in
Caleb Downs.
Caleb Downs is the safety.
Yeah,
It's type in Alabama freshman running back Buford, Georgia, because that's driving me crazy. But I don't have a computer in front of me, so I can't.
Yeah, I'm looking in here right now. We're gonna get to it, but
he's an incredible player. Let's hit this computer here.
Yeah, and you look at all the running backs that they've got, and I'm gonna find it here in a second because I've got the list up here. But that is golly. There's Roydale Williams is a guy though that I've always thought was an incredible talent out of Hueytown. Yeah, you're talking Justin Haynes.
Justin Haynes, yeah. Listen, they're so high on him. You couldn't be any higher as an offensive coaching staff than they are on Justice Haynes. So you put him with that other group of guys, and yeah, they're loaded at running back. Justice Haynes. Why he always slips my mind, I don't know. But.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's a kid. He's ranked as the number 2 running back in America, and Roydale Williams is a guy that had Pac-Man video game type numbers out of Hueytown in high school. And he's been hurt. Look, to say that a running back has been hurt is just to say the same for every one of them. I mean, you're getting hit. It's like being hit by a car in the SEC. And you look the teams that I think when you're in doubt, when you're trying to break in a new quarterback, you better have a running game, because while he's trying to learn his receivers and learn how they run their routes and get timing patterns down, what's the insurance policy? Turn around, hand it to a running back behind a big old offensive line. And you've got, the big guy, Peyton Proctor, coming in from Des Moines, from Des Moines, Iowa, who's a lifelong Hawkeye commitment. He's coming in. What is he, 6'7", 300? Wilkin Formby. I mean, I watched him a couple of times watching John May play, who's parents of the May Veterinary Clinic there in Tuscaloosa and Northport since 1964. He's 6'8". That kid is an athlete. Gary, you saw him play.
I watched him in high school. He's not some big kid.
Yeah.
He just got better and better. I mean, he was always athletic and for a tackle. And then, when he got the weight to kind of go with the height, this freshman offensive line group that you're talking about, with the Lennon and Proctor and Wilkin, Formby, I mean, the offensive guard, Rock McKeldry out of Anniston, they put together a very impressive freshman offensive line class. And I think they're going to be physical up front. That's an area really the last couple of years that has not been up to the Alabama standard. The offensive line's been okay, but it hasn't been great. And I think this year they're going to take a step in the right direction. I think they're going to simplify things in the run game and become more of a downhill running team. And it's going to help, as you said, it's going to help the quarterback. I don't care who the quarterback is. When you can run the football, it helps you out. And Alabama, I do think, is going to not totally reinvent itself, but I do think they're going to be going back to more of a, for so many years when Saban got here, I always said Alabama wasn't a quarterback-dependent offense. They had good quarterback play, but they didn't have to have the quarterback go out there and win the game. Yeah. And and people always use that term game manager like it's some kind of negative. And I've talked about this. The first thing you do as a quarterback, you better be able to manage the game. You better be able to take care of the football. You better be able to do the things that keep you from losing a game before you start worrying about throwing for 400 yards. But as Alabama evolved with Lane Kiffin and then started on this run of quarterbacks, they have become much more quarterback dependent. I mean, the offense they ran last year, you saw it when Bryce Young went down. They couldn't run that same offense with Jalen Milroe. And that's what I mean by quarterback dependent offense. There's never a situation where it's called plug and play, because there's a reason one guy's playing in front of the other guy. Exactly. But you do want the quarterback to be able to come in and run the offense, I think. And I think Alabama will have an offense this year that is more in line with, if this quarterback goes down, the other guy's coming in and running the same offense. It's not going to be, well, we depend on our quarterback to throw for 400 yards a game. That's not who this Alabama team is going to be. And I think that will be advantageous to all the quarterbacks. Yeah. There aren't many Bryce Youngs out there, Rob.
No. Number one pick in the draft. And a good kid too. Barry, I know you've got to get on to your show. Let people know how they can follow you. And again, Wilkin Formby, he's no Clarence Rutherford as an offensive lineman. Lumpy Rutherford from Leave It to Be. This kid is put together, and he's eaten at the Taco Casa once or twice, but he is going to be a hell of a player. But tell people how they can keep up with you.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Gary Harris _WVUA. I'd love for you to follow me there. at Tide109.com is the website for the radio station. WVUA23.com is the television station website. My radio show is streamed live. You can download the Tide 109 app. The TV sportscast and newscast are streamed live at WVUA23.com. Just click on Watch Live. And if you want to, if you're an Alabama fan and you want plenty of Alabama sports news, you can get it from me here, both on the radio and on TV. Thank you, Rob.
Great stuff. We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Okay.
From Hewlett & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the horsepower collection, and they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you. Hour number 2 about to get started. John Hartwell, AD at ULM, will check in with us, as will Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline down in Oxford, Mississippi. Great stuff with Gary Harris, and he always does such a great job of breaking down what's going on out there. And got that name, Justice Haynes, the running back for Alabama out of Beaufort, Georgia. A lot of good players come out of there. That's one of the million schools in the metro Atlanta, 6.5 million people market. Wow. This kid is scary, 5'11", 200. And Roydale Williams is going to have his time if he can stay healthy. That's, again, the key is, can you stay healthy? Just practice alone has got to be brutal in that running back room in Alabama and the rest of the SEC. But loved having Dudley, Dawson, Hogville.net, and Gary Harris talking college football. A lot happening right now. And we're going to get into a lot. But, again, so glad to have Francis listening right now out there recovering. Man, I'll tell you what, it makes my day to know that people are listening. We're blessed to have listeners all over the place here on Sidelines, and great sponsors like rumbleboxinggym.com/Midtown Memphis. 1835 Union Avenue in Midtown, on the corner of Union and McLean, across from Walgreens. This is an incredible facility. You go in, the workouts, they've got all the gear, the gloves, everything. 45-minute workouts, intense calisthenics, weights, dumbbells, and then the punching. I mean, you are doing these 30-second, just bam, bam, hook, hook, jab, jab, gut, gut. Great instructors. The instructors are fun, and the lighting in there, it's in the dark. It's almost like a haunted house in there. But it is some of the most intense people to be around. And as far as workout goes, I would say it's a lot like swimming on land. You will work every muscle in your body. And they're open 5:30 every morning, Monday through Friday, open on the weekends. But rumbleboxinggym.com/Midtown Memphis. This is the first of 3 locations that Ann Camp Lee is opening. Gateway Tire and Service Centers. We go the distance for our customers and the communities where we are. and the Boy Scouts of America, and Reforest, Mississippi. Proud to be associated with great organizations like that. And if you're getting out today and you have car work that needs to be done, Tom Martin's Body Shop in Memphis. Simply put, the best. And Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. They are the second largest Filson dealer in the southeastern United States. They have an incredible inventory of Duckhead, Old South clothing, Devil Dog jeans, Ariat, you name it, Stetson. They've got it all since 1961. HewlettandDunn.com. They will deliver anywhere. Let me just be honest with you. The website barely scratches the surface, what they have in there. They get new stuff in every day, and it seems like every 7 to 10 days they rearrange the store, but they have just absolutely incredible inventory at Hewlett and Dunn in Collierville, Tennessee. HewlettandDunn.com. When John Hartwell gets on here, one of the things I want to ask him is on the rules. There's always committees, and I know Matt Dean is out today. He is doing his job as an associate AD at Rhodes College. Rules committees. What are we going to do? Are we going to stop the clock? Are we going to make the game more like the NFL? Well, what is happening, Paul, no doubt, is we are trying to speed the games up for TV, and there's this fear out there. There's this pandemic that the young generation of sports fans can't sit still. Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's really true. I go to a lot of sporting events, and I see kids there. I say kids, people in their 20s, 30s. They're as engaged as ever. What happens is in the off season, there's just this groupthink mentality out there that everybody knows what's really happening. It's like looking at a schedule on May the 4th, which is today, on this Thursday, of a football team that doesn't start playing games until the first weekend in September. Well, ask yourself this. What happens if somebody's injured on that team that you're worried about? It could change everything. And people also love to talk about their records. Well, we'd have been 12-0 if we hadn't have done this and that. Well, sure you would have. That's right. If everything went perfectly, you'd be in great shape. You would be, the world would be a better place. But, if it weren't for jerks and thieves, we wouldn't need locks on our doors. But your record is what it is. And, you look at a schedule right now, you're forgetting that what happens one week determines what happens and how you play the next week. Everything that you do on the field of competition in any sport or in business, the phone calls that you make today, you stay an extra 30 minutes in the office when everybody else is running out, they're clock watchers. Stay that extra 20 or 30 minutes. Make those extra 10 phone calls, or make them at 6:15 in the morning. Because if you get up and go to work early in the morning, those people that you see passing by in traffic, those are the owners of the companies. Get to them before you have to go through the gatekeepers that they have set up. You call them early, you call them late. No difference in sports. When everybody else is rushing to get in, take a shower, do an extra 10 minutes of wind sprints. That's what's happening. So we're not teaching kids to compete. Because of that, we have the portal on fire. But let's get going with ULM AD John Hartwell and Yancy Porter of Rebel Yell Hotline. Matt Dean again out today for administrative meetings, the call of duty that he's got to do. But gentlemen, I am fired up about what's going on in college athletics, and everybody's all worried. What are we going to do? Are we going to make the games faster and faster? We're going to reduce it by 7 or 8 plays a game. John, is that going to make college football better? I think coaches will just figure out how to work around it.
Hey, Rob, you didn't give me advance warning today. I got to make sure I bring my A game today because sharing the stage with the esteemed Yancy Porter, I feel privileged.
Hell yeah, we love it, man. He's on with us every week. I said, get on there, John. Y'all, let's have at it. I want to hear y'all talk.
Hey,
well, I tell you what, it's I'm sorry, John. I
go
feel
ahead.
the same. It's so good to be on with you. It's always good to hear your voice and see your face, and I hope everything's going great with you, my man.
Yeah, all is good down here in Monroe, or as the locals like to call it. And I guess 2.5 months in now, I'm a local Funroe, Louisiana.
That's right.
So trying to as Rob was talking about putting in the extra work, getting in early and making a few extra phone calls, doing a few extra reps for our student athletes. Hey, we're just trying to find a way to come to Ox Vegas in November and be able to compete against the Rebels.
Well, let's make that happen. Monroe's only about 40 miles from where I was originally born and raised in Pittsburgh, Mississippi. So it's good times over there. And I'd love to see Ole Miss be able to play you guys in all the sports and be able to see you a lot more often than I've seen you the last few years.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, hey, Rob, when you were talking about the length of games, and this has, crept in from all sports. And in fact, I was on a Sunbelt conference AD's call the other day with our commissioner and folks from our conference staff talking about instant replay and soccer and women's soccer. And I made the comment in that meeting. I said, this is not about soccer. To me, this is a statement about all of sport. And I absolutely understand the desire to get things right. But to me, part of sport, and if you're in it long enough, when that human element and officials are human. I know when you look at some of the stuff going on and these brawls caused by, youth league coaches getting mad at, or parents getting mad at officials. I mean, that's a sad state of today's society. But the human element of officials, to me, is a lot like the human element of the game and how student athletes are going to perform. And when we slow down the games to a snail's pace and you're taking, 3, 4, 5 minutes for an instant replay and a review of the play, that takes the momentum and to me, the fun out of the game. And again, you're going to have, if there's a human element and there's an incorrect call made, if you're in the game long enough, you're going to have some go your way and give you a benefit. You're going to have some go the opponent's way, and it's going to suck when you're on that end of it. But I may be in the minority, but I would rather have fewer interruptions in the games and contests and still have that human element in there as opposed to totally making officiating a mechanical process.
I'm with you, and I look at the almost 4-hour games. A lot of them are, and I know the average is 3 hours and 35 minutes for a college game, but I'm going to start a series, guys. It's going to be a look back called Forensic Officiating. Where would we be in college football if we would have had the review for the last 100 years? Because there's a lot of calls and stuff that have been missed, but it's painful, Yancy, to be at a game in September when it's 150 degrees, and every time there's a touchdown when you're watching on TV, you're like, oh, God, we're going to have to go through the review, and then we're going to have to hear from all these guys that are out in Cupertino, California. They're going to parse every little place. Like, if you look there the left metatarsal on his right foot looks like it extends to the outer bounds. Now, we have this forensic view here. You're like, God, just get the call right the first time.
Well, in my opinion on this is more of the cramps or whatever you want to call these injuries where a player goes down and then we have to go to 3-minute commercials. That is more of a problem than the actual replays, in my opinion. Now we're seeing where you have 10, 12, 14 players. I don't want to call them fake injuries, but they are what they are. And that is really slowing the game down, breaking the momentum of the offense when they get in a rhythm. And that's why the defensive staff is doing this, right? They are getting players to drop to the ground to break up that momentum. But it really breaks up the rhythm in the stands as a fan. You're just sitting in there going, my gosh, it seems like it takes 10, 15 minutes to get the game back started again. That's the biggest problem to me where we are with today in college football as far as the delays in the game.
Yeah. And John Hartwell got a question for you from a listener. Said, where will they play the Sun Belt baseball tournament this year? It's been played at a lot of places, but do you know where it's going to be? I know you do.
Yeah, the home of the Montgomery Biscuits, and
Okay.
Right down the street from the Hank Williams Museum there in downtown Montgomery. So we're about 3 weeks away. We have 3 weekend series left in conference play, and then it'll start. I think maybe the 22nd or 23rd of May there in Montgomery.
Okay, that's what this was from a listener who was lived in Montgomery, went to high school in Montgomery, and was talking about it and said the original Dreamland owner had a daughter that lived above their Montgomery restaurant, so he made sure to have the original recipes. That would be Big Daddy John Bishop. Ain't nothing like them nowhere. I'll say this about Dreamland. They've got great sauce. Their sauce is really good. It's a different kind of rib than what we have in Memphis. But by the way, if y'all ever go to Costco and you can get the dinosaur bones, that's what MJ calls them, the beef ribs, oh my God. I thought you had to go to Kansas City or be from the Midwest to like beef ribs, but you put the salt, pepper, and garlic on there. They are absolutely incredible. Both of y'all, we're getting into, there's a story out there. Gary Harris was just on from Tuscaloosa. Didn't even think to ask him about this, but what is this story about? Sports books in Ohio are not letting people bet on baseball games with Alabama. And again, neither one of y'all worked for Alabama, but a story like this, I mean, anybody can put anything out. So I'm just wondering, is this propaganda? Will the NCAA, what will they do? How could you prove something like this without having the FBI involved? And I wouldn't count on them to give me change for a nickel.
Yeah, that's a great question, Rob. And I don't claim to be well versed in the story, but I did read enough because it actually involved LSU. I think it was a series between Alabama and LSU. Yeah. And if I remember correctly, Alabama was up, maybe 8 or 9 to 1 in the game. And then there was some betting activity and LSU came back. And I want to say the final score, I'm not going to have these numbers exactly right, but like 8 or 9 to 6 or something like that. But evidently it triggered enough unusual bets and a significant amount of money where they are looking into it. So I just know the periphery and
hold those thoughts.
Yeah,
we're going to come right back with more on this after the break on Thursday's Sidelines. All right, Rob Browne back with Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline, John Hartwell, AD at ULM. And guys, interesting, Yancy, I don't know what you've heard about that story with Alabama. And again, people, you have to be so careful, but it just keeps coming up day after day after day that, what is happening. But what do you know about this story, and what do you think is behind it?
Well, I don't know anything personally about it, but I did hear there was a segment on it. D1 Baseball had a couple people on speaking about it on their radio programming. And what they said was that there was some inside knowledge within Alabama, within maybe some people on their staff about some injuries that let some of their friends know about an injury where they were betting on it off of that knowledge. And that's was the gist of it. I don't know much more than that, than what the D1 staff was sharing on the radio programming. I don't think it had anything to do with the players betting on or against with the team or against the team. It simply had to do with someone there on that staff. Maybe not even someone in the dugout, but somewhere in the Alabama baseball organization shared some information about some injuries.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. I wanted to provide some clarity because we've had a number of texts. We had one from Long John Silver in Pine Level, Alabama, a listener. Pine Level, that's south of Montgomery, west of Greenville, but wanted to know about that. So I was like, well, let's ask. And, John Hartwell is going to be with us here, back with us in just a second. I know he's driving to a meeting, but Yancy, I want to talk about what's going on with Ole Miss right now. The quarterback situation. You got the portal. Lane Kiffin last year had the second or third best class in the portal. And, people are already projecting, can Ole Miss win 7 or 8 games or whatever? I hate putting ceilings on them because it's like, well, then why play the games if there's no way? And I understand why people do it. They try to, basically manage expectations of fans, because you wouldn't want to go out there and say, this team looks like they're going to win the national championship when they're going to struggle. But, when you play the game, you're thinking you're going to win it. But is Lane Kiffin talk about this year's portal class and why it's not like last year's?
I just don't think there's as many difference makers in this portal class for Ole Miss as they had last year. I think there's a lot of really solid players, guys that will contribute, be in the rotation. But as far as being, tilted the field your way because of a player or two, I don't see it in this portal class. In fact, last year Ole Miss obviously weeded out a lot of dead weight in the portal, but this year they've gotten a lot of important rotation pieces, even a couple starters taken away in the portal. So the portal has not been as kindly in Ole Miss this year as it was last year, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's the quitter portal, or I call it now the athletics witness protection program for a lot of these guys, because at the end of the year the coaches say, hey son, you're so far down the depth chart, we don't have a spot for you. Instead of going, well, I got cut, you go to the portal. And, it's like purgatory for sports. But I know there are times when a transfer is a great deal for you. And I know my school, your school, John's school, we can all benefit from it. It giveth and it taketh away, as Shoney says. But just curious, there don't seem to be that many great quarterbacks out there this year. It's kind of interesting. And John, from your perspective, you don't want to be an AD at ULM that's in charge of a school that is developing players for Power 5 schools. I mean, that's insulting. I'm going to say it. God dang, I hate it. I hate that. I don't want to see that because you should do a good enough job on the Power 5 level of getting your own damn players instead of having to go and wreak havoc. That's where, why do we do? Sure, you can say the smaller schools, well, the bigger schools have, no, I want there to be competition, and I don't want there to be meddling and tampering.
Yeah, that's a great point. And you know, what's going to be interesting is 5 years out from now, what this is going to do to junior college football. Because if you look, especially the state of Mississippi, state of Kansas, you know, Florida to some extent, California, I mean, there are some very, very talented junior college players who, you know, for whatever reason, out of high school did not go the 4-year route. But in essence, and you may make a great point, you know, the purpose and the intent from an athletics perspective, not from an academics standpoint, but from an athletics perspective, hey, let me go for a year or two and develop, get bigger, stronger, faster, and it will give me more opportunities, you know, at a 4-year institution, whether it be a Power 5, Group of 5, whatever. But now with the transfer portal, you know, you can do the same thing at a Division II school or a Group of 5 school. So you're right. So you've got kids who, and it, you know, it's not just football or men's basketball or women's basketball. It's across all the sports that, you know, all of a sudden a 2 or 3 star who, and again, that's a projection on a piece of paper, you know, and there are some can't miss 5 stars, but there are a lot of kids who were 2 or 3 star high school performers who are making money on Sundays now in the NFL or in the NBA or in Major League Baseball. So it will be interesting to see what happens from a junior college level now that, you know, the transfer portal is fully active. Although I will say, you know, from the NCAA's perspective, what was done, you know, in terms of making it tougher to go from institution number 2 to institution number 3, that is at least a step in the right direction.
Yeah. And Yancy, along those lines, about 3,300 kids a year will sign Division I scholarships, going to the 131 schools in football. 3,300. 1%, 33 of them are 5 stars. 350 to 400 are 4 stars. So let's say 2,900 of them are 3s or 2s or 1s. And I think The Athletic is doing an in-depth report right now called 3-Star U or something. But the overwhelming majority of the people who play college football are 3 stars or lower. And a lot of them, if developed, become the 4s and the 5s, and the 5s and the 4s disappear. Do you see it that way, Yancy? Player development is everything. You better have a great staff. Without it, you're losing ground automatically.
Yeah, I mean, the player development now, you know, I looked at what Dan Mullen did there at Mississippi State at his time there with the Bulldogs, and he would be a perfect fit right now for a school like Mississippi State because look, if you're a Mississippi school right now, you're not going to have the money to be able to compete with the Floridas, Georgias, and Texas of the world, whereas before you could. But the setup now with so much of the NIL, I mean, some players, you got a limited NIL compared to other schools. So you better have a staff that can identify the diamonds in the rough, so to speak, and be able to develop them. And some schools like these Mississippi schools, and really, quite frankly, 95% of the D1 programs, they're going to need someone like a Mullen or Dan that can really identify them and develop them. They're going to be more important than ever. Or you're going to have someone on the cutting edge like a Lane Kiffin that is right there in the middle of this game, right? But like I told you, you know, last year's portal was so beneficial for Ole Miss. And we're going to see this year's portal has not played the games yet. But I just don't see the playmakers in this portal for this year's class at Ole Miss like I saw last year. And again, they've gotten hurt in the portal. I mean, their secondary was sabotaged by the portal. And you got one guy starting. You got 5 players in their secondary last year that are now starting for other Power 5 programs. So it's beginning to hurt Ole Miss, even with Lane Kiffin at the helm.
Yeah. John, at ULM, you have 367 student athletes across 17 sports. And that's a lot. Actually, no, it's I mean, that's a lot of athletes. Now, does that count walk-ons as well?
Yeah, the numbers, it fluctuates a little bit, but somewhere around 380. But, using Yancy's example there, I will give you guys, obviously, I'm not going to say the institution.
Yeah.
I'll give you a real-life example of what's happening. So we have a football student athlete who's entered the portal and has already transferred. The only way, he came to us as a transfer. The only way he can immediately play at the next institution is to graduate and to go as a graduate transfer, because it will be, he's transferred before. So this institution, which is a Power 5 institution, has, a couple of more zeros on the end of their budget than we do. Called our football staff, called me and said, hey, we would need you to do us a favor. We need you to pay for 12 hours for John Doe for this summer so he can graduate from your institution. So by the end of the summer, he can be eligible as a graduate transfer at our school. And I'm like, have you lost your mind? I said, we're scrambling to make sure that we can provide summer school to as many as our own student athletes who are coming here and actually competing for us next year. And you want me to pay for somebody who said, hey, I am looking for a better deal than ULM to go play, and have already declared that and want us to spend, $5,000-$6,000 so he can go play for you. I said, call me crazy, but I'm not doing that.
That's insulting. I mean, and that's where we are right this. And Yancy, you pointed it out. Look, I want my school to be the best in everything, but I'm also going, God bless. How many times in 1994 we had to get rid of athletic dorms because they were seen as an unfair recruit advantage. We couldn't have an all-color media guide because not everybody could do it. They used to be really petty at that stuff, Yancy. And again, a lot of fans out there, I mean, everywhere you go in the country, there are community colleges, there's state universities, there's college towns. I mean, there's pro towns too, but we better be very careful about saying, well, to hell with everybody else, just the people at the top. We have antitrust laws in this country. We have monopoly laws. We have laws against collusion. I mean, why are we letting this happen in sports?
Well,
Anybody
again, the whole premises of what this was about was for the last 100+ years, the NCAA and schools have not shared the revenue with the student athletes that have made them all this money. So that sounded great in theory. But again, where this is turned to, and I'll tell you this again, Rob, as we did last week, this is turned to, instead of the schools and the NCAA sharing the revenue with the student athletes, what we've turned it or circled around is that, again, the fans are now sharing the money. They're coming out with money out of their pocket with these NIL collective groups. And it's simply not why this was made. This was made to allow the student athletes to share the profits that are made off of them at these sporting events. The schools don't want to share that money. So they are allowing these collectives to organize just for the fans to throw in there to spoil them. And that's what's happened. And what needs to happen, has to happen, is that the universities need to make these student athletes employees. When that happens, now they can truly start sharing the revenue, and we can start setting guidelines to what is going on right now, because it's simply out of control.
Yeah. John, what do you think?
Yeah. Hey, Yancy, I love you like a brother, man. I got to disagree with you on a couple of things though here, because all of a sudden, if they become employees, one, and I'll speak from my CPA hat, the tax exempt status of both the athletics department and the university as a whole comes into jeopardy. So that's one component. But here's the other thing: be careful what you wish for, because if they become employees and Johnny doesn't perform on the field of play, or Jane doesn't perform on the field of play like they're supposed to, then they're an employee, and you can say, hey, you come in after the game, or you come in Sunday after Saturday's game, and you got a pink slip in your locker. Hey, it's just like the pros. You are not guaranteed tomorrow. Whereas in today's world, you've got that scholarship whether you go 0 for 12 from 3-point land or 11 for 12. So those things all play in there. I do absolutely agree with the point of trying to put more dollars, or more, I shouldn't say put more dollars in student athletes' pockets. I should say, if they are willing to do the things necessary to earn, to accumulate whatever more dollars in their pocket, then we need to do that. But I think we need to be very careful in just saying, oh, the easy thing is to make them employees, because and here is the underlying component of this. So I wasn't on last week, Rob. At the beginning of last week, I spent some time with all of our FBS athletic directors, with the new president of the NCAA. I call him Governor Baker, Charlie Baker, who was the governor of Massachusetts, now the president of the NCAA. I am encouraged by him. He is a real life former student athlete. His wife was a student athlete. He's got street smarts. He understands the thing. So it's not going to happen overnight, but I do feel encouraged by his leadership. But, the vast majority of the kids playing sports, whether it's Division 1, 2, or 3.
John, hold that thought. I want to come back. I have not heard this. Nobody has. This is great stuff about the NCAA actually doing something right. We'll be right back.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4 City exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
John, the rest of the free world wants to continue hearing what you said. You met with all the athletic directors of the FBS. That's Division One. I call, and I'm not going to get into why they changed it to Football Bowl subdivision. I guess they had a consulting firm come in and charge them $12,000 an hour to tell them that, but I still call it Division One. So you met with all the Division One athletic directors, and you were encouraged. And I know you're a truth broker. You're not going to tell us that if you didn't really feel that way. And that's
yeah.
Positive.
I mean, my ray of hope there, if you will, is really from the leadership of Charlie Baker, the new president of the NCAA, former governor of the state of Massachusetts. not to get political here, but Republican governor from the state of Massachusetts. Yeah. And, here's the thing. When you talk about making student athletes employees, and I think this is one of the few things you would get a consensus on, or close to a consensus. We don't need to totally recreate the wheel for what, in essence, is probably, legitimate money deals, maybe, and I think this number may be overstated, maybe 500 student athletes at high-profile student athletes. There are, 350, 400,000, and I think that number is even low, across Division 1, 2, and 3 collegiate athletes, and a very, very small percentage, that have this marketability, and more power to them, whether you're the gymnast at LSU, whether you're, some of these guys that have 7-figure deals, more power to you. But I don't think we need to blow up the entire system to do that, potentially make institutions not tax exempt anymore. All of those things, I think there are ways that we can continue to evolve and still address some of these financial issues that some of our student athletes have. And oh, by the way, and I maybe I'm old school, I keep going back to this. You do not see this number of issues in college baseball, because in college baseball, you can go, or in baseball, you can go directly from high school and go to the minor leagues. Or, you don't have these issues. Where these issues are in football and men's and women's basketball primarily.
Yeah.
It's the only pure sport left, John, baseball. Yeah. And it's more and more reason why fans' interests are shifting to baseball. I mean, we know how big it is in the state of Mississippi. It's not like that anywhere else. I get that. But the popularity in college baseball is growing and growing. And as long as you keep having the things that are going on, particularly in football and basketball, I think it's probably just as bad, but not as many eyes on basketball. But the football, it's a turnoff. And people are putting their time and energy more and more towards baseball because of it.
Yeah, well, and think about this. I've got 2 boys and 2 girls. I don't give them I don't give them money like that. They all work. And you're sitting there, you're asking fans, okay, already support what you're supporting, and then give these kids, when you put the value to what a scholarship is, quit being so ungrateful. I mean, be grateful for what you have. And I think that when was the last time you saw a football stadium add seats? But and then how often are you seeing now baseball stadiums being expanded? And I find myself you can't get enough talk about college baseball. And then it's making the major league game better. I mean, you turn on down south here, you got the Cardinals or the Braves, and it's just so much fun to look at that. And John, you just nailed it. You can go right out of high school, but the fact these kids are going there for 3 years or 4 years, they're getting started on their education, and they're just getting better coaching, and their bodies are in better shape when they get to the majors.
Yeah. And, Yancy, you're spot on. And the other thing, I think about Coach Bianco and Ole Miss's run last year to win a national championship, and Elko became basically a cult hero, not only in Oxford, Mississippi, but all over the state. And here's what you've got is, fans see kids like that over a period of 3, 4, 5 years. They develop an affinity for those kids, like has happened in college athletics for many, many years. But now if you've got kids who are bouncing going to 2 or 3 or 4 different schools, people lose that affinity. And quite frankly, they may be the most diehard Auburn or Ole Miss or ULM or wherever fan. But if it's a revolving door of who's there, a lot of those affinities and what their passion is for the individual kids who wear that Warhawk or wear that War Eagle or wear that Rebel uniform. And in today's transfer portal, a lot of that's going away, and you see folks getting disheartened. And not to mention what you said about the NIL. Rob, you hadn't used this analogy today, so your old theoretical fan, Foghorn Leghorn.
Yeah.
Foghorn's got deep pockets. Foghorn has done very well, but you know what? If Foghorn's shelling out for his suite and his, giving to these various capital projects and giving all this money to NIL, at some point, Foghorn's kids are going to say, "Whoa, Daddy, that's part of my inheritance you're giving away there." So somewhere the pendulum's got to swing back a little bit.
Yeah, and I'll just say this about what is happening as a lifelong from birth Auburn fan. I've gotten to where I'm losing that affinity for the players on the team. I don't really care about them anymore like I used to. I mean, I love following the team because it's my school. And as Shook Jordan would always say, ain't nobody bigger than Auburn. That's what you got to realize, or bigger than LSU or Ole Miss or ULM. You pick the school. But these kids, all this talk about, well, think about this. Let's say Yancy was a pre-med major and John Hartwell was a pre-law major. Well, your sophomore year, you can't start practicing law because you're a pre-law major, or your first year of law school. You got to wait till you finish. And we're trying to put the cart before the horse. 17, 18-year-old kids coming in wanting $300,000 or $400,000 or $1 million, and they can walk. There's no contract. They can walk. And what's going to happen is fans are going to start entering the portal. And they're also going to have a wrath, and they will boycott. And yes, Foghorn Leghorn. Well, yes, sir. I'm going to, you want me to write you another check? Back off, boys. You're bothering me. Give me some room. Again, this is my 32nd year in wealth management. I've worked with a lot of CPAs. I've worked with a lot of attorneys, very smart people. And never once have we ever seen any family say, hey, let's give $10 million to our 19, $20 million to our 20-year-old, and $30 million to our 21-year-old. It's age-banded, incentive-based trust. 98.5% of the students on most campuses are not student athletes. And they're sitting there going, well, wait, if my picture's on the front page of the Birmingham News, am I going to get some NIL money? Wait till that stuff starts happening. And as far as employees, I'd be worried about them unionizing.
Hey, well, here's the other thing. And just think about, whether it's Archie Manning or Dexter McCluster at Ole Miss, or a Pat Sullivan or a Frank Thomas at Auburn, or a Stan Humphreys at ULM, those numbers that get retired and people revere those people who have played for them. Those days may be gone because, are you really going to retire a number of a guy who's there 1 or 2 years and bolted for the next best deal? And I'm concerned about that.
Well, John, what do we do to be able to check the balances again? The NIL comes, and that really changes the dynamics, and now the portal follows it. Why did the NCAA allow this to happen, from your perspective?
Here, you want my candid answer? Here's what I think. I think, and no offense, because I know you got some out there along the line listening, Rob. This is all attorney driven. I think either the action or the decision to not take action on a lot of these things, they're so scared about antitrust, or somebody's going to. Well, if you walk out the street and look at somebody wrong, you have the opportunity to get sued. We've got to do what is in the best interest long term of our program. And I really think that, again, I want free market to be able to be out there to some extent. I think we need to have some type of parameters, and whether that's The NCAA, I don't think that's the best avenue. I think if Congress could pass something, if they would be willing to do so, and there seems to be, I'm not going to bet my home mortgage on them passing something, but there seems to be more momentum getting there. To have some parameters on what that, you hate to say a salary cap, but an NIL cap, something along those lines, because it is so far out of whack. And here's what's going to happen. I may have mentioned this on here before, Rob, but I've had this conversation with several folks. Fast forward 5 years down the road, and you got some of these kids who are getting $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year in NIL money, who for whatever reason aren't going to make it in professional athletics, and they're going to be 5 years out, and they're going to come back. They're going to find an attorney who will do it. They're going to sue because they're going to say, hey, I was put at, I became accustomed to a lifestyle where I didn't have a worry in the world other than going to practice and going to class, and I was making $300,000 a year. I had to get out in the real world, and God forbid I had to take an entry-level job for $60,000. I have been wrong doing that. And I promise you there are attorneys out there that will take that case.
Yeah, the attorney of firm of Dewey, Cheatham, and Howe is waiting for your call. Just one call. But bottom line, and Jack Turner, a great friend of mine in our show, is an attorney, and he talked about the antitrust laws in America. Well, the brother of the scoundrel William Tecumseh Sherman from Ohio put that law in Congress. It's not a constitutional amendment. It's not part of the Bill of Rights or the preamble to the Bill of Rights. It's a law put in there by Congress. So it could be challenged and could be torn apart. Tommy Tuberville and Joe Manchin from West Virginia are working together across the aisle to try to fix this thing. But I'll tell you right now, 98.5% of the students at Ole Miss, they're not going to get NIL, and they're going to have to pay back their student loans if they're taking them out. But they're having to pay for college or at ULM, you name it. And this stuff that these kids, when you're 18 years old, guess what? You're 18 years old, and on the trip on the Spring River we do every year on Memorial Day, as the kids have gotten older, you get hamburgers until you get a damn job, okay? And then you can start getting some real food. Well, we lost Yancy there. I hope Yancy is all right. But anyway.
Hey, Rob, I got to ask you this on the trip on the river, though. Again, on a college student budget, were you drinking Ham's beer too?
No, this is the adults. This is the adults up on the Spring River trout fishing, and we'll have 25 or 30 adults and kids. And as they've all gotten older, I mean, Wilson's over in Charlotte working, and he's in banking now. And trust me, but they get a stake at that point. But, when you're 18 and 19, you don't make the damn rules. And I'm sick of all these people out here that are going, well, the universities have made billions off their backs. Let me tell you something. The universities have provided them with a platform that the Virgin Mary herself would be proud to come down here and give her thumbs up on. And they have provided them with hundreds of years of embedded capital gains and sweat equity to give them that brand name. And I am frankly sick and damn tired of listening to the whining of all of these people out here that go, oh, they're taking advantage of. No, they take advantage more often than not of the university and the generous donors like our good friend Foghorn Leghorn. And he's only going to write so many checks before he says, why, no, I'm done with it, because it's silly. You know what? And Yancy, you know it. John, you know it. And everybody listening does. And to sit there and say, look, the universities and the fans, who owns college sports? It's the fans. Who provides all this stuff? There's going to be, it's like right now, folks, we are playing musical chairs. Eventually, somebody's going to be caught without a chair. We got a couple of minutes left. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us, and we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Every single day. John, you know it. Yancy, you know it. We are so blessed. Go out and help people, but don't give to get, give to give, and be a leader And as a man, find excuses to win every single day. The word win stands for what? Whatever is necessary. Mildred here echoing my feels as she steals yet another one of my hoodies. But it's unbelievable. What I get, she thinks is hers. Anyway, John, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you make a great point. You know, these are challenges we face, but at the end of the day, you know, we're in the education business. I love what I do.
Yeah.
You know, challenges every day, and if we can make a positive impact on young people's lives that help them change for the better or have a trajectory that gives them the opportunity of success in life, that's the business we're in, and we'll continue to work our way through these. But you know, people have a passion for sports. People have a passion for the institution they either attended or somebody in their family attended or that they live near. All of those things, nothing is going to change there. And the rest of these things we work our way through are mere, I look at them as opportunities, not challenges. But hey, guys, great to be with you.
Yeah.
Hey, Yancy, I hope to get to see you before November, and keep all the crowd Knox Vegas straight.
I will. I'll tell Chuck Brownsville you said hello too.
Hey, when you see Crane, tell him to do a little bit of work.
Hey, he may be the hardest working man in Oxford. And folks, Yancy Porter, you can hear him at Rebel Yell Hotline Monday nights at 6 o'clock on Sports 56 WHBQ. And also, John, tell people how they can follow you. And let me just say this: relationships build trust, trust build relationships. Fans want players that love their school as much as they do. Oh, they don't care. Well, you know what? Then don't give them a scholarship. But John, let people know how they can follow you. Thank God you're in the NCAA's good side.
Yeah, you can follow all of the athletic pursuits of our Warhawks at ulmwarhawks.com is our official athletics website. You can follow me on Twitter, John_Hartwell. Next week, I will actually be in San Antonio, Texas, Monday to Wednesday with our women's golf team in the NCAA regionals out there at the TPC of San Antonio. So maybe I'll call you in and give you a little update on NCAA women's golf, Rob.
Call in from the Riverwalk. Hey, everybody, we had a great show. We're out of here until tomorrow. Have a great one.